Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. And yet again, I brought another fantastic group of independent comic book creators. And this week, we're going to be talking about the direct market and whatever else comes to mind. So, without further ado, I'll bring on first guest, Mr. Sam.
What's up, man? How you doing today?
I'm good, sir. How you doing?
We're working hard every day, trying to keep putting books out, man. Living the dream.
I hear you, brother. All right. Oh, do a quick intro, sir.
Sam Quinton, I own Sanopa Publishing here in Frankfort, Kentucky. We produce role-playing game books and comics. Our comic titles currently include 47 Furious Tales, Reign of Ages, Necroholic by Brian Lee, and Tibby and Her Time-Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms, with 3 more titles coming out over the next 7 months.
Look, you're out of breath just saying those. Forget it. When you put up the other 3,
Yeah.
Nice.
It's going to be a busy year.
Hey. Hello, everybody. I'm Randy Zimmerman. I am a podcaster with the Indy Comics Network and editor-in-chief of Arrow Comics out of my lovely town of Burton, Michigan. I print books like Hero Bot Zero, The Fool, Calico Shard, which is a great fantasy title with artwork by C. Michael Lanning. There's 2 issues of Hero Bot Zero available all over at arrowcomics.store. And now Alice in Chains is also available over there as well. Those are all books that I've read, or not read, all books that I've written and created. I've read them too. Probably not enough if you catch any spelling errors. But Hero Bot Zero is really my main character. It's the one that I draw and write personally. Plus, I have an angry monkey that will be back eventually, and all sorts of great fun things. So yeah, arrowcomics.store. Check it out.
Nice.
What up?
What's up, Marvin?
I'm not frozen.
No,
you
you're
were
not
frozen for a second.
No, you're good.
No,
now.
You were frozen.
I'm pretty sure I was.
So, Marvin, what?
We can all pretend we're frozen.
Oh yeah, but then I'll see like your fan in the background spinning. So Marvin Wynn, straight out of Comicsburg, writer of The Edge.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool.
You're frozen again.
All right, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's your internet.
Yeah, I think it's your internet this time. Yeah, Mr. Tim, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm Timothy Fling. I know most of you guys. It's great to see you again. I'm mostly known for my kickboxing career, but lately I've been working on music, and some of you guys know about that. We're working on a set of downloadable theme songs, which are going to be released alongside of, well, they're Chrome trading cards is what they are, and they have a QR code on the back, and the cards are from one of our book series. And the idea is it's a way to promote the trading card series, and I'm trying to get some traction for some of these musical theme songs we've been doing. We're up to, this is number 14. It'll be done in about 8 days. And that one is for Call of the Cryptid. That was our second most successful crowdfunding campaign. Number 2 is going to be going into production here shortly. And pretty excited to talk to you fellas tonight, man. I always enjoy this panel. As most of you know, I've stolen every good idea that JD had and tried to exploit it in ways that benefit myself. So I say that in a quite complimentary way. I enjoy your panels, JD.
I'm happy my one idea was able to inspire you.
I haven't got into anthropomorphic animals yet, but I will tell you that's on my radar. And
it's on your list.
Yeah, it's on my list, man.
There's a lot of people who love that, man.
There really is. I say that. I hope I didn't sound sarcastic when I said that. I'm a huge fan.
No. It's just there's a big audience for that.
Yeah. It's well, I won't launch because JD knows. We could do a whole show just about that.
This is true. All right, gentlemen. So let's start out with this show question. Okay. Direct selling to retailers, is it worth your time? Now hold on, before anybody answers, I will start with Sam.
Dark man.
But I want to pull this up. Our good buddy Larry says, no, it's not worth the time. Get a publisher. Now, Sam, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm of 2 minds. I think that if you have the time to actually market your material directly, and if you have the capital available to print at volume, then yeah, it's doable. But having said that, I currently only ship directly to 30 different store locations. Plus, then we have the distribution through Comics Mainstream distribution for spinner racks and the head shops and stuff like that in Oregon. And then locally here too, we've got product out in tattoo parlors, and then Retro's The Vault and a few other game stores. And we are moving our first title into direct market distribution with Anarch Press. So I'm actually doing both. I think that if you are drawing your book and writing your book, you probably have a hell of a lot more time into your book. And I'll agree with Larry on that. Get a publisher, get it out there. If you don't have the time, the energy, or the personality to market yourself directly to retailers, or the capital to get yourself into Diamond, because make no mistakes, gentlemen, getting into Diamond is very capital intensive. You need a significant cash reserve, not just for one book, not just for two books, not just for you really need to have 6 to 9 months worth of capital available for production just for one title line, because you're not going to see revenue from a title from solicitation to release to payment for about that period of time. So in that situation, if you have access to a publisher like Anarch Press or Boom Studios or Image, certainly take advantage of that. If you are not releasing monthly and you have an ongoing series, then direct shipment to retailers is completely viable, but you have to be able to sell that product, which means you honestly have, or IDW, yeah. I keep forgetting they're doing submissions now. Sorry, pardon me about that. That was
I'm just adding a few things in the chat for some
publishers. That was actually a change of policy about 2.5 years ago too. So I should be up to speed on that. But anyway, the thing about the volume on that is essential, because you're going to have achieved an economy of scale such that your book is on the shelf at a price so other people can pick it up, and at a price to the retailer that they're able to profit on that. So your book that might have a $4 or $5 price tag on the shelf, you need to be able to put that in the retailer's hands somewhere around the $2 mark or lower. For an offset press run at current printing costs, that's about 7,000 books. So just be mindful for the storage, for the capital outlay, and to have the sales for it. And of course, as with any business, keep your accounts square.
Mm. All right,
well said.
That's fair.
Yep.
Randy, what are you thinking?
Accounting's important. That's what I'm thinking. After that, yeah. We're at Arrow. We're taking our time. We're looking over options. We're looking for different avenues. We've got a guy who's going through, and he has a distributor list, or not a distributor list. I'm sorry, a retailer list that he's approaching to test the waters here and there. Not hardly any retailers out there want to be approached by individual publishers. They'd rather be approached by a distributor, just because it's worth their time to look through a larger catalog than a small one when they go to order.
And one order rather than 3 or 4. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Now, again,
we're looking at like I said, we're just looking at options at this point and different avenues of getting comics and sequential art out there to the masses. So that's where we stand.
All right, cool. Let's roll it around. Marvin, what are you thinking?
Come on, man. So I curated that list of 350 about stores that are willing to do direct sales, and that changes like almost monthly on who's more and more willing to do so based on a shrinking market. So when you're however you're selling the stores, whether it's Diamond, it's direct, it's Lunar, it's whatever, Penguin, whatever, someone's picking your pocket. So there isn't any reason not to try all options in a situation, and going with a publisher might not be the best option because, again, that's someone else picking your pocket. So you're going into a situation where a situation is how do you? Well, I mean that percentage is based on the person. I mean, it's there's no right or wrong here. Not everybody. Like probably no one here is going to touch 3,000 stores. If there are 3,000, we don't even know if there's 3,000 stores. I don't have a list that covers all that.
I don't think anybody has a definitive list anymore.
I would say it's under 2,500. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, we've lost like 10 stores and gained 2. So, I mean, that number probably isn't around 3,000. It probably isn't. If 350 stores are willing to take your book on a ad hoc sale thing, go for it. I would recommend not doing the 50-50 split with them. Ask for more. Some stores will say yes, some will say no, but I mean, it's to your benefit of your own business to ask for more money up front than you're willing to give. There, like someone told me, oh, I thought 50% was the standard. I said, there's no standards. You go out there and get what you can. Like everyone is hustling, so you go and get your money. I would say that one of your best options is if you're going to a convention, approach the comic shops that are at the convention. Try to unload some of your extra stock on them there. That way you don't have to pay for shipping and for packaging. So now you've cut some of the costs off the top of that title, because most people when they're pricing their book they're not including the shipping costs or the material you have to use to pack. So you're talking newspaper, bags and boards, bubble wrap, all that stuff needs to be included in the cost. So if you're undercutting yourself and you're saying I'm going to go 50% on this, you already lost money. So I mean, however you want to run your business, do what you got to do, but just know that no matter what situation you're in, unless you've got 50 stores within 10 miles of your house, you're going to incur costs. So it doesn't matter how you do it. It's cost of everything.
All right, cool. Tim, what are you thinking?
Well, the first thing, I agree with everything that was just said here. I think that there's some truth to the fact that the market of the LCSs has changed, right? Good points from Niobe. Like in my case, let's say it is 3,000 comic stores. Let's just do some math real quick. So generally speaking, your threshold for getting paid a percentage on a publishing deal is 6,500 copies. That's what mine is. I imagine you guys must be pretty close to that. Well, you'd have to sell at least 2 in every comic book store in the US. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I don't have that kind of following. I'm not carried in every comic book store in the US, even with a few small publishing deals that I have. I have Antarctic and another small one. So it's in the comic book stores, but I don't ever hit that number. Do I think it's important? I do. Here's the reason why. Because it is for the marketing of getting into the store. That's more of a discovery thing for me. I don't think it is a profit center for me. To be a profit center, that's something closer to what Marvin's saying, where it's like a team of guys banded up locally or regionally. Like I could see that being a little bit more profitable. But in my case, it's a little bit more like a necessary thing. That's how I get into the shops. That's how I get into the previews, with the long-term hope that they back one of my crowdfunding projects or maybe even buy something from my website. Put it in perspective, right? If you say you're selling 2 in each store across the country to get your percentage, let's say that's 6,500 copies, 7,000 copies. Does that sound about right, Sam? It's about 7,000, right?
About that, yeah.
Yeah. So at 7,000 copies, well, if I did half of that if I did a quarter of that on my crowdfunding, you see what I'm saying? So my guess is it's probably the smart move, because that's how customers would start to notice Randy Zimmerman. It's how they would notice JD Calderon. You know, you'd be turning up in the previews catalog. But I would suggest maybe it's more of a marketing cost than a profit center.
Well, I mean, we were at the Comics Pro.
Yeah. I got to say, man, that's one of the things I always use guys as an example. I mean, you're doing it right. That's a nice team of people all working toward a common goal.
Right. But we heard the talk. Like we were there. We heard what was being said about what's going on in these stores. They are not making their margins. They're not. So for them to take a chance on a not Marvel, not DC book, not an Image, is going to be.
It's going to be our weakness. And like they said, by the way, the retailers are super great about this. They want to support us, but the truth is, it is their least profitable segment in a challenging market. You know what I mean?
Like you're shrinking. You're not gaining any momentum or popping up. Is why like we don't just attack comic shops. We attack anything where any space where anyone could read a comic. So other events, coffee shops, restaurants, pizza places. You need to attack anywhere that you think someone may be interested in buying a comic, or it's people who used to read comics that don't go to a comic shop, or comic shops that have disappeared in their area. So 2 weeks ago, we did a comic show in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, at a high school, Phillipsburg High School, run by one of the teachers at the school who has a comics club. So the show was run by her, and it's run by the students. They had Amy Chu at this show. They had Jose Lopez at this show. They had DMC from Run DMC at this show. Students did all the calls. They got all the sponsors in. They don't have a comic shop in the area. So you're doing all this, and you've got no lead in. So the closest shop to them was Jaff. Jaff was at the show. So I mean, we were invited. We didn't have to pay anything. They fed us. They gave us breakfast. They gave us lunch. They gave us dinner, and it was a good show. But what's their outlet? A lot of the students said, "Well, I get stuff through the mail, or we'll get together and go to Jaff." And that's miles away. So I mean, they tell us, like, there's nothing to do in this town. There's nothing to do. Why is, like, you have all these things and events going on. For 8 years they've been doing this show, and no one said, hey, why don't we open a comic shop in this town to try to capture that audience that's waiting for this. They gave scholarships to students going to animation school. No one's giving scholarship. The Kubert School was at the show. Why is no one getting a scholarship to go to the Kubert School from this school you're basing this whole thing around comics? Like, where are you capturing that next generation? That's your next generation of creators and readers. You're doing nothing for them.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I could see they wouldn't give a scholarship to the Kubert schools, they might not be accredited. That's the only reason I could see that. So they might not be an accredited university.
Well, that's possible, but I mean, they could like pony up some loot and say, well, we're giving you half a discount on anyone who any students that want to attend the school or something. I don't know. Yeah,
that would definitely be cool.
There's
two levels of truth there, right? I think Marvin's right in the sense that, well, how do I want to say this? The first thing he's mentioning is that it's got to be an alternate source to where, to discover it. Like I talk about discovery all the time. That works better for bands. It works better for comics. But Niobe has a point too, right? If you have your name in the stores, people are more percentage-wise, they're more likely to stumble across your name. Mm-hmm. It's probably a little bit of both. My sense is it's probably more what Marvin's saying, because the titles that are selling 1 trillion copies, noticeably, they're the ones that aren't in the comic book stores. Of course, I'm not saying that anybody's material is like this, but you talk about the Dog Man or certain manga volumes, they're not necessarily in the comic store. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. The Scholastic model is pretty interesting because you'll see a lot of sales coming through at school locations through vending machines and not just like the book fair, but like the vending machines and stuff like that. We leave a lot of money on the table, gentlemen, by only trying to stay in our own little box. So, I mean, you really do need to have your books, at your cons, your shows, at the shops where people can pick them up. Like Larry keeps reminding us, AP is a good vessel for that. Mm-hmm. And then I think we need to look at, hey, Herrenberg, what's up, man? We need to look at also how things are done in other places and how those work. So, for example, when we look at one of the things I've been chasing for a while now is trying to get my hands on some vending machines to put out with our comics in it. Getting into other store locations. So the tattoo parlors have been really, really good for us. Head shops have been really good locations for us. Marijuana dispensary through Comic Mainstream has been an absolutely fantastic sales point for us. So being everywhere where our books might appeal to the native market has been a huge thing.
Yeah, that's correct. And a quick comment, I saw Larry said, I didn't mean to imply it was the same thing. I get it that it's floppies versus it's a different model. I only mildly suggested it because that's the one that easily proves that the market's not necessarily shrinking. Like there's parts of it that are growing a lot. So the answer is probably something like what Sam is saying. I'm just curious, how do you get into like a marijuana dispensary? Asking for a friend. Of course, I've never seen one.
Directly, our first one was specifically through Comics Mainstream Distribution with Adam Watson. Bigfoot Buds in Malala, Oregon. You guys rock. Love y'all. Keep buying our books. We'll keep shipping them. And then from there, getting into other shop locations, it's easier for like the little mom and pop shops when you can find them. There's a couple of chains that I'm reaching out to. As far as Herrenberg, Alexia moved back to Europe, and so she hasn't been stateside back since November. So that's why she wasn't at Pittsburgh. One of the other things I'm chasing right now is there's a particular chain. I'm not going to jinx myself, so I'm going to bring this up. But they've got 64 locations in major cities across the United States and a couple in Canada. Really want to put Tibby on the counter in these shop locations. And if we pull that off, I'll let you know. But fingers crossed on that one.
Nice.
But we can't ignore. Obviously, I think for most of us, crowdfunding is a huge resource, especially if you're like me and you write and you can't draw. Because when you're talking $6,000 to $8,000 in art and lettering costs for the production of the book, not counting your press runs, that money has to come from somewhere, and it takes a while to recoup that at normal market prices. We've been really fortunate. Tibby, we released it to our crowdfunding backers in September, and between that. Those crowdfunding campaigns and sales we've done since, we've already sold a little over 3,000 print copies, which is the most we've done fastest of any of our titles. 47 issue 1 is still outsold overall, but it's been out since 2019, so it's not really apples to apples. But the thing is that 3,000 copies, counting your crowdfunding campaign just to break even. You know what I mean? Getting in those positive values, getting in the black across that whole title line, really need to step up another order of magnitude. You need to be doing, 20, 30, 40,000 units per issue is where we really want to be at. And it's like eating an elephant. You do it one bite at a time. You gotta, dig in there and just keep chipping away at it. And one thing we can't do, guys, is give up. You can't give up. You can't stop. And you can't be afraid to say, hey, I was wrong about this thing. It's not going to work this way. Let me try this a different way. You have to work smart. Learn from failures, embrace your successes, but don't linger on them.
Isn't that the Scrooge McDuck? Work smarter, not harder.
I guess so, yeah.
So here's another one. Like talking to these stores and again at the Comics Pro, a lot of the stuff that we heard and we're told is that people aren't going to comic shops every Wednesday.
Right.
They're going once a month, every 2 months, every 3 months, just to grab what's in their box and they walk out. So most people aren't even looking at what's on the wall. And I started conversing with a gentleman here who runs a website called Positively Pittsburgh, and he wants to do a podcast. And I met him at one of the local comic shops. He looked at the wall and was mesmerized. Like, where do you even start? There's so much stuff here. As a new reader walking in here, I'm intimidated by the amount of things that are here. Where am I looking? What am I going for? How do I know what this book is about just by looking at the title? Who are these characters? I walk in there as a new person. I know nothing. Where do I go? And is the shop prepared to handle a person who walks in there like that without having them walk out of there disenfranchised and not buying anything because it's too much at once? It's overload. You don't know. Like, you see an X-Men book, it's at issue 700. Where's issue 1? I can't go issue 1 to 700. How long is that going to take me? I don't know that issue 1 is from 1960s. And now I have to learn all this stuff, and that person is intimidated. They're just going to leave. I don't want any of this stuff because it's too much.
Well, that's an interesting question because when I was a kid, I walked into my first comic book store and there was racks upon racks of books. And I walked in there and I was just like, yeah. And I just started snatching stuff off. And it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter. It was like issue 82, 220, 38. it didn't matter,
Right.
right?
Well, you were conditioned though from outside other things like G.I. Joe, Spider-Man, His Amazing Friends.
I was before that. I came
Right.
before that, bro.
Well, man, you had like the Marvel superhero hour, so you knew something of these characters.
Yeah, I knew something, but the thing is though is that you know, I mean, what's funny is that the most spectacular thing I saw at a comic book store was that Captain Victory by Jack Kirby. When
Mhm.
I saw there was something outside of that box.
Yeah.
Right. That for me was the most spectacular thing I saw.
Right.
You know, that was that when I first saw that first book, I was just like, this is not like those.
Right.
You know, for me, that was incredible to see.
Mhm. Right.
You know,
What I say is that this. I'm just going by what he's saying and what I'm hearing.
no, I got you.
It's-
But my thing is like, when did that begin? Why do people walk in and get scared when they see issue 700? It's a comic book. Just grab it, pick it up, and read it.
Yeah.
What stops a person
Mm-hmm.
from just wanting to explore?
Diving right. Well, I mean, I think that it has a lot to do with that need of that collector need. I need to know what happened before this, and how am I going to get from point A to point B to point C to point D and keep things moving? And it could be the price. The price point could be the problem. Like,
True
I'm looking
enough.
at this book and then it's $5 for this. I mean, I got to go back 699 issues. I can't afford that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, is that where the shop steps in and says, "Hey, try this instead." Like, instead of you grabbing issue 700 of X-Men, here's a book they add. It's similar to that. Here's issue 1 of that. You can get started. It's not 699 before this. So that's where the shop comes to play of handing you something else that is more in line with what you want, but not as daunting as going backwards to like 4 years.
Well, I mean, the thing is it's a lot easier today because when I was a kid and I picked up, let's say Thor, the first one I probably picked up on my own was like 270 something, 276, something like that, right? When I got that, I was like, oh, this was great. Now to go back, I was 10.
Yeah.
Now, even back then, A Journey into Mystery, any issue was at least $70, $80, $200. I would, I mean, my dad was generous with me. He wasn't that generous. You know, he was like, here's $10, here's $20, go get whatever you want.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Randy, what do you think? I mean, you've been at it, just as long.
Well, Marvel has tried a couple of different ways to get around that problem. And I think Jim Shooter was clever back when he was editor-in-chief by running a paragraph over top of the Stan Lee Presents that described the character and whatever major action you needed to know to catch you up to that point in the book in just a short paragraph. They also used to run inside front cover, a full explanation with a picture of who the character is and where they were in the story, just to let you know, give you a who's who page up front, or just in case you forgot between reading issues. But those days have gone by the wayside, especially for the mainstream guys, because they're just out pushing the 1 of 6 in order to get the bound book together to stick that into the bookstores and the libraries. Their lack of respect for the retailers actually really, since the direct market started, has always dismayed the hell out of me. And Jim Shooter had it right and understood what was going on. Later on, I think during the Gemis era is when they were putting the little catch up on the inside front cover, but they dropped that pretty quick when they realized it was a page of advertising they were forfeiting.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
And major real estate at that. And they didn't want to put it on the first actual page of the comic because that should be the splash page to get people to get into the comic past the cover.
Do you ever, Randy, are you ever a fan of Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol run from DC in I guess that was like, what's that, early 90s?
I've read a lot of that, but it's been a long time.
I think of it because it's a funny reference to what you said in the Vertigo line. It had like a little text splash on the inside front cover.
Sure.
And if you remember those stories, like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like You know, the voice came out of the black phone at midnight in the nowhere, man. It's like, what? Like, if you read it, it doesn't help you.
That was Doom Patrol too, though.
Yeah. The whole series is that way.
Yeah, that was the whole feeling of the Morrison's run, especially.
Yeah,
was very
if you read your
stuff.
blurb, you'd understand less than if you went in blind.
Well, they'd also try to catch people up to the story within the first 3 pages. You know, that's why you'd always start out with like Spider-Man swinging through New York. You know, then bemoaning is missing or whatever, trying to catch up to whoever, and they try to catch you up to the story in the story. But they don't worry about that now because it's all just chapter 1, you know, out of all the rest of them. And if you don't have the one before that or the ones after that, well, that's not their problem. Just buy the book from the bookstore or rent it from your library.
Right. And just to answer the question about the pawning off, I think that let's revisit that when we've all got 60 years worth of books.
Yeah.
And see who rebooted, who started over with a number 1, and who's on issue 700.
True
That's
enough.
a good point. That's a good point from Daphne too.
Right. Like I said, it's different because if you've got a person, and this gentleman's in the 70s, 80s, has never been in a comic shop before, and doesn't watch the movies or the cartoons or whatever, and you walks into a comic shop and it's like,
he's not attacking you, Larry. It's just a statement.
Yeah, exactly.
You got 10 years. It's what,
wow. So 20 years.
I got a little longevity. I'll be 6 years this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a desperate need to go back to simpler entry point times, you know, or to start including some sort of a catch-up publication especially with these larger companies, every 6 months or so, maybe every quarter. Who's who in the DC or who's who in the Marvel or whatever. Right. Again, that would be if they were concerned about readers. And in my opinion, that stopped happening kind of with the direct market. So,
well, and you could probably prove that it used to be harder too, right, Randy? Like if you would say, and I mean,
I never had a problem.
Here's what I mean, though. When I say harder, I mean, let me give a for instance. Like you could be reading Marvel 2-in-1, and it would be halfway through, and you'd have to go get Marvel Team Up, which maybe they didn't even carry in that store. You'd have to go to the drugstore across town to figure out how the darn thing ended. Like nowadays, you could just buy it on the internet, but back then you might be driving around in some spinner racks.
I never considered that a problem. I considered that part of the fun.
Yeah, it's part of the fun.
And this is going to really date how old I am in my reading. Back when I was really into Marvel and DC, Marvel especially, there were 2 lines of continuity for Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. There were 2 lines of continuity for a lot of these characters through their reprint books. And those reprint floppies, those little cheap, at the time they were 25, 35 cents. It didn't matter if it was Avengers, it had Captain America, Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver in it. Well, you'd know that was completely different from this Avengers over here that had Thor and Iron Man and, you know, Captain America. But that was part of the fun. Marvel Tales, you know, he was hanging around with Gwen Stacy in Marvel Tales and hanging around with Mary Jane in the other Spider-Man titles. Again, that's how you filled in those continuity holes, is by buying all those great little reprint books, and you don't see those around anymore, and you know, except for the old ones.
Right. Well, that's what was Marvel Team Up was for, was to give you Spider-Man and then introduce you to a character you might not be reading that may entice you to go out and get those.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it worked. It worked on me.
Yeah. And whatever happened to the Who's books? They don't, like Marvel and DC don't do those anymore. Those source books and things like that gives you like the background and all the characters that are running around those, and pretty much an encyclopedia of characters. Why the heck did they stop doing those, and why are they not doing them now?
Continuity is not important to them anymore.
Yeah.
That's what it is. If they do a Who's Who book, it's to attract Hollywood to the next big property. That was, from my understanding, that's the main reason why DC did all these great old Showcase Presents collections that were in black and white, 25 issues, and a nice phone book printed on newsprint of all of these unusual characters, was because nobody in Hollywood, for example, had ever seen Haunted Tank before, but needed to know it was an incredibly cool property that needs to be an HBO series. you know, and so they would do a showcase present, spread those copies around Hollywood, sell whatever, you know, that because you have to print a certain amount of those large newsprint books anyway, sell the rest of those to retailers, and any overflow they stashed in a warehouse, and they ended up, you know, bottom basementing them over to Ollie's years later.
So,
You know, go ahead.
Here's a question for you guys. Let's date ourselves. When your first set of comics, when you first started buying comics, what did they cost? When I started, 25 cents cover price.
Yep,
15 cents.
I started buying comics right before I turned 5, 1975.
I was really ticked off when they jumped to 35 cents.
I was
Really
at 40 cents. I was at 40 cents. 35 cents is just before. Like I literally jumped on at 40 cents.
It was the same price I paid for a bottle of Coca-Cola.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I remember Hershey's bar used to be a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Marvin.
I'm looking it up right now because it was G.I. Joe #1. What was the price on that? 65?
I think that was a special issue, wasn't it? I think that was
$1.50.
$1.50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$1.50. Yeah.
So
That was an oversized saddle. It was saddle stitched with a real thick cardboard cover on it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
1982. So what else? What other books? I would have 65 cents would have been around that time.
Probably 65 or 75 at
It's
that
about probably about 75 cents. I think that was what the ROM, the Space Knights were coming
65
out.
didn't last long. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you pop that question back up that Daphne just had? I didn't read the whole thing.
How much of this resistance?
No, but that's what I was saying
Yeah.
is that, and that's what we were being told at the Comics Pro is that people are not browsing in stores. They're coming in with getting what they want and leaving. The only time I notice people browsing is during Free Comic Book Day, and most of the time it's browsing to get the free comics and then they leave.
Conventions is full of browsers.
Yeah.
That too.
So Tim, what was your early buying price?
Well, first of all, you know, I'm sensitive about my age, and I don't want to take the crown away from Randy. So I'm going to say,
okay.
I will give you this. I'm really a 25 center. That puts you right in the low 100s to late 100s. Fantastic Four. But I'm a Silver Age guy. A 15-cent book, Randy, when I saw it, I would always grab the 15-cent book. And if it's a 12 center, I'm all over it. I have a great story to tell you about going to Empire Comics in Rochester, New York in 1977. And this will illustrate the difference in the years of comic collecting. Go there in 77. I'm buying treasury editions. If you guys at home don't know what that is, they're like these giant size comics. And one of them had the big event, which it was Superman versus Spider-Man. And it was like the big thing, right? And it was something that you would specifically go to the comic book store, even if you were on vacation at your uncle's house in New York, which I was. So I go into the place and my dad's with me. And I got to say, what was that thing? $1.75, maybe something like that. And I'm looking at all the comics, right? And the guy had on the rack a book that was like the holy grail of the books. It was Incredible Hulk #1. And it had a price tag on it, $50.
Wow.
And I went, Dad, man, like, because I knew enough about Silver Age collecting already to know that this was a cool book, and it stopped for a while and then restarted. You're maybe a year or two away from Rampaging Hulk, the black and white book that was pretty hot at the time. Well, my father turned to me and he said, "What are you, out of your mind? $50 for a comic book?" And of course, at the time, let's be honest, we're talking about a comic book that was 14 years old. That would be like one of us buying a comic that was from 2010 right now.
Right.
But that's how much history had been created in that 14 years of the Silver Age Empire. And I think there's not too many better for instances than that story. To make a long story short, he didn't buy it for me and I still don't have it.
Well, what is it worth today, though?
No, in the condition that was easily a $55,000 book, probably a little closer to 60.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Now, it's easy to say, hey, I'd have that. But as we all know, I'd have sold it multiple times. I'd have sold it the first time it hit 10. That's the way, because I'm a retailer too. You know, the fact is you sell the inventory, and that's why, again, that's a topic for another show. But
Yeah.
collectible comic book inventory, my hat's off to the people that are still doing it now. How are you now replacing your inventory? Because every person that has an old comic, hey, this one's from 2012. It's in a plastic bag, so it's worth the top dollar. What are you talking about, man? Where's your 12 centers at, bro?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I find that one's interesting because being old, I had a massive collection. I've sold a bunch of it off, lost some of it to floods, whatever. But I had like a lot of what they refer to as the keys.
Well, let's hear it. What keys did you have? Let's hear it.
First appearance of Deadpool. First appearance of, like, I pretty much had X-Men from probably like 121 all the way up to like whenever Jim Lee left. Right? I probably had every issue.
Good stuff.
In that. I had everything from like 260 or 270 of Thor to about 380, something like that. All of John Byrne's Fantastic Fours, all of Frank Miller's Daredevil, all that stuff.
Nice.
Like, you know, a bunch of Hulks, a bunch of random stuff. Like, I mean, I have John Byrne's Captain America's, the Iron Fists.
Plus, I saw you're an Eclipse book guy, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but that
too.
stuff, yeah. See, the thing is, I don't give up my indies.
Yeah.
Especially stuff I can't pick up in reprints. That stuff I don't give up. Yeah.
I have a Miracle Man collection, if you guys know what that is, including one of them signed by Neil Gaiman.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
They're supposed to be reprinting all of that this year, by the way.
Yeah, there's a bunch of reprints. I have the reason I like to tell that story. Remember, Eclipse had a warehouse flood, and the reason why Miracle Man books are valuable, not because they were so popular, they weren't. It was because there was a lawsuit, and then there was a flood. There was all kinds of stuff that affected the title.
It is a really good book, though.
Yeah.
I have the entire run. The actual comics.
Same here. Yeah.
I picked them up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 16, the 17, whatever. The Kid Miracle Man is the one that was in a flood. There's only something like, I think there's like 2,200 existing copies.
I got them out of Warrior magazine, out of
the British one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's how I found Marvel Man.
Very cool, man. Yeah,
it's great.
I was at the shop like 3 times a week. So, I was a lunatic back then. So, gentlemen, I'll open it up, guys. Anybody got a question? Feel free.
I got a great one, man. We got some mileage out of this the other night, and I hope it doesn't seem like I'm being domineering. But when you hear this question, you're going to dig it. What was the first thing that made an influence on you? Generally, it's when you were a kid. It could be a video game, a song. What was it that inspired you? And you said, I want to make something. JD, what's yours?
Daredevil 168. That's
How old were you? How old were you?
11.
Okay.
10.
That's
I mean, I was already writing, but that was the first comic that I read, and I said, you know what? If I write a comic, this is how I want to write it. And I'm still chasing it. I'm still chasing it.
So that's Frank Miller, right?
That was Frank Miller. And then the next closest one to that after that, that gave me that same feeling, was an issue of Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. I don't remember the exact issue.
What was it about?
It was the one where people are eating, I guess, like sweet potatoes off of Swamp Thing.
Oh, sure. They're
getting high.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody's tripping.
Issue.
Yeah, and that was the other one where I was just like, yes,
this is good stuff.
This is how you write a comic. And I mean, and that's what got me hooked into Alan Moore. That's when I started picking up Miracle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so great example.
Literally broke your teeth on the classics is what it is.
Yeah, it's actually very exciting when you hear that. Those are really they're great examples of somebody that wants to write comics, what they chose.
A lot of that writing still holds up incredibly well and are still great reads. That Daredevil 168 is an amazing story. Really well done. And all of the Alan Moore Swamp Things are just incredible.
Classic. Yeah, I'm a Swamp Thing collector. I got all those.
Very classic stuff.
So, hey, Sam, how about you? Was the first thing for you, was it comics? Was it art? Was it music? What was your first inspiration?
The first thing that inspired me personally was actually as a small child watching clips from the moon landings. The only thing I ever wanted to be was an astronaut. What? And then literally the only thing I ever wanted to be. And so I had to find other things. But when I got inspired and thought that maybe one day I'd want to make comics and later on also role-playing games and such, was the X-Men tale of the crucifixion of Wolverine by the Reavers during the Siege Perilous epic.
Oh.
And that was a story that I thought, I would love to write like this and do something in addition to eventually becoming an astronaut, which of course never happened. But as far as comics go, that was that. And then inspiration from novelization was from the works of E.C. Tubbs, and from role-playing game work was from the work done by Stephen Michael Seshi for Talos Lana.
Great answers. Can I ask you for the moon landing part, what year roughly are we talking?
Well, I was born in 1970, so I was watching
so you still saw some early ones.
Very small.
The Gemini, right?
All of the Apollo landings, because we were watching the ones from '69. It was always on the news when I was a kid, and anytime that there was anything on PBS about it, as a small kid, my mom would still tell you, I'd be like, I want to watch the Moon Guys. I want to watch the Moon Guys. And it was just something I was always really, really keen on as a toddler, as a small elementary school student.
That's really
all the way through.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So I can't wait to hear Randy. My guess is his might sound a little bit like mine. Randy, give us an idea what your first inspiration was, and try and work the year into it if you remember it.
No, don't remember the year specifically, but I do remember I was 8 years old. I was sick as a dog. I was flat on the couch, couldn't hardly move outside of throwing up. Mom got a hold of Dad somehow because he worked a half hour away in the big auto plant. On his way home from work, Dad picked up a copy of Walt Disney Comics Digest for me, which is a real thick book. Didn't want to spend a lot of money, but it was a nice thick book, a lot of comics. And I absorbed that book like no tomorrow. And it had all sorts of different stories in it, all sorts of different Walt Disney properties, serious drama stuff, Funny Animal, Pinocchio was on the cover. But inside of that, the opening story was an Uncle Scrooge story by Carl Barks.
Oh, wow.
And that's what really sparked my imagination and just everything in the book. There was a super goof story in it. I've got I still got a copy of it here. I dug up a copy of it some years back. But inside that book is a Uncle Scrooge story, the 24-karat moon, and it's got the ducks going off into outer space, and that's what really started me thinking. And the telling stories, and the fact that I felt better when I wasn't thinking about my own sickness, when I was entertained. That's what really sparked it for me. So I ended up digging up all of the old Walt Disney Comics Digest. My parents at that point wouldn't allow me to have superhero comics because they thought they were too violent. And this is probably back in the, late 60s. I would say mid 60s, probably. It's more like it, late 60s.
Yeah.
And, when my mom finally allowed me to have a superhero comic, the first 2 books that I bought was Secret Origins #1, because I knew the origin of Superman and Batman, Wonder Woman at that point, but I didn't have a copy of it. And I wanted a copy of it really bad. So walking home from school, I'd stop at the library and just absorb everything about comics that I could possibly find that they had books of. And there weren't a lot. There were a couple, but I really took to them like a fish out of water. And Shazam #1 by C.C. Beck, and that was the original Captain Marvel. And both of those were 20 centers. Those are the first superhero books. First Marvel book I bought was Marvel Team Up #6, because I knew Spider-Man, but I had never seen the Cat before. So it's a cross, #6 or #8 anyway. It was the Spider-Man and the Cat, and the villain was the Man Killer, which was a woman who absolutely detested men.
Hey, I remember Jeanette Kahn, Herwinberg. I'm pretty sure she was the publisher right before Vertigo in the DC line. If I got that wrong.
She was high up at DC for quite a number of years. She was brought in from Dynamite, which was a book that would go through school. Yeah, Dynamite magazine.
She was right before Karen Berger, right? I don't know if I got
long
it right.
before Karen Berger.
Okay.
But she was way up from Karen. Karen came in and ran the Vertigo titles.
Right. I knew there was some connection between the two.
Yeah, that was
great
she probably took over mid 70s.
Oh,
and
okay.
I would think Karen Berger came in at the late 80s, mid to late 80s. Yeah.
Well, great answers. I want to hear from Marvin too. Like, what was your first inspiration? And if you kind of remember the year.
Oh yeah. Let's do the year. So let's say the year was 1980, 1983, and the title was Star Wars. That's what set me off on the road of not only wanting to create, but getting a lightsaber and going to save the galaxy, finding the X-wing and blowing up the bad guy. So it was like the and then that leads to G.I. Joe, because that's G.I. Joe is basically just Star Wars on the ground with laser cannons and like pow. What is it? Blue lasers, red lasers, knowing it's half the battle. So yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that piqued my interest back then too.
This is a good one from
I was
Annabelle.
6 years old for the first time I saw Star Wars. Star Wars Empire Strikes Back the same year.
I was hoping somebody would mention that. I am a huge fan of all the Harryhausen material. Jason and the Argonauts, Sinbad. Man, I love all that stuff. And the 33 version of Kong, I still watch when it comes on. It's been on Tubi a couple of times, and I think it holds up.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Better than the 70s one.
Yeah. It's dated. That's
the 70s one isn't terrible. You can sit through it, but it's like it was like the second or maybe third to the last time that Kong was portrayed by someone in a suit, because they had almost made it to CGI, but not quite yet.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
right,
so
Tim?
we had some. There's a second half of that question. Do you care if I ask the second half?
Before you get to the second half,
go ahead.
Answer the question yourself.
Mine is actually probably a little bit different. I got a comic from my dad that he found in a garage sale. It was Straight Arrow, which is a Western comic about a dude who he's like a cowboy during the day, and at night he takes a costume of an Indian and he fights crime. And the reason why I mention it is my influence, because I was a little kid, maybe 8 or 9. And the first panel was he was a fake Native American, but he was like robbing a stagecoach, and he pulls back the bow. And the next panel was the guy reaching for a gun, and the arrow was through his hand. And he's going, In short, I just understood sequential art. Because, a lot of people don't quite get it, right? And that was what triggered the thing for me. It's like, these are moments of time and space. And from then on, I was hooked on comics, and I found regular comics right after that. My main inspiration of why to write, I would say it came from the Vertigo line, the comics can be good. Swamp Thing, Doom Patrol, Miracle Man. You get the idea. All the Grant Morrison stuff, all the Neil Gaiman stuff, Sandman. And because that was when people started to say things like, well, the writer can make a meaningful contribution to how good the IP is. And I think that sort of gave comic book writers a rebirth. But the other half of the question is, first of all, really great answers. And thanks for sharing them. I'm really interested in hearing that stuff. I always want to know why we're making the things we do. It kind of there's not really any good reason for us to be doing this. So the second half of the question is, we all answered the first half in kind of what I would say a traditional way. Hey, I was inspired by a comic. I was inspired by this great work. If it wasn't the comic, what was the other thing that inspired you? Like in my case, it would probably be music. I'll talk about that as I go around, but maybe it was a game or a piece of art. Like, what was the second thing other than a comic that nudged you over the line? JD?
It would probably be novels. It would definitely be
novel?
It would definitely be Rogers Alazzin and the Amber series. Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, you got to mention that, back then it wasn't cool to like Rogers Alazzin. It's kind of still not.
Rogers Alazzin was incredible. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, I'm not ripping on the guy. I was the same way. I liked Isaac Asimov, and this is 30 years before a movie. Nobody, they were like, what? Like, it wasn't a cool thing that nobody's like, wow, Tim seems cool. He likes Isaac Asimov. It wasn't that, trust me.
Look, it's sad more people don't know who Asimov is. Actually.
Yeah, you have to mention the movie I, Robot. Everybody knows Will Smith, so they know that.
I read Dune before the first movie Dune came out.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you really want to get obscure, mention Fritz Lieber to someone, and then
there you
go.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I love all these things, and that's why I want to know. Because the pot that we're cooking has some weird stuff in it. Yeah. Sam, you had a good blend the first time with the RPGs. I sense that maybe you're like kind of a hardcore RPG person.
Yeah, well, we produce RPG books as well. So we do like D&D Adventures under the Open Game license, and other content along those lines, and been working on development of our own game for the last couple of years. So,
well, expand on that a little bit then. So when you started getting into gaming, what was like your go-to game that you were obsessed with?
So I started gaming for a really unusual reason. I started gaming because of a girl.
That's a good reason.
I went to college, and there was this girl I was really, really fond of, and she wouldn't go on a date with me if I didn't join your D&D group.
Yeah.
So that's literally how I started playing D&D. And then just made some really great friends and stuck with that. Yeah, I mean, apart from what we mentioned before, like novels and the D&D, Shadowrun, Talisman.
What's your favorite novel of all time?
My favorite novel of all time. Oh my God.
We can pick one. I've got a gun on you.
Changes by Jim Butcher.
Oh, I'm going to look that up. I don't know it.
Yeah, it is a penultimate turning point in the Dresden Files series. It's the death of a very important character, and it completely changes everything about the world.
Okay, it looks pretty good. I'll check that out.
I would recommend reading through the series to get there, because there's a death in there that is, with as little time as she has in the pages and changes, would not be as impactful if you didn't have the preceding appearances about it. But yeah, that or if not that, it would be Kalen by E.C. Tubb.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'm glad to hear that. A lot of novelist fans in the room too. That's something I dig too. Randy, circling back to you, right? We all answered the comic questions, which was somewhat similar there. What's the one that's kind of odd for you that maybe we wouldn't have guessed?
Going to show my age again. Coming home from the library from school, I used to hate to take the bus. I lived 2 miles outside of town, so the library would have records that you could borrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't borrow the music records. I borrowed the records that had old time radio programs recorded on.
What?
Yeah.
And I'd bring those home. We had a phonograph set up in the house that would pipe in directly into my room.
Are you kidding me?
I'd go down there and put a couple records on, go upstairs.
Okay, now what kind of record? Dial this in a little bit. What kind of records are we talking about?
They're recordings of old 30s and 40s radio programs,
like they're detectives
and X-1, Sam Spade. I love that. I love that stuff. The ability to be able to tell a story verbally and have you see it in your head. It's almost like comics without the pictures. Not quite, but it's a different form. I've always had a weakness for radio dramas and for radio presentations. We had a guy locally that had his own like independent access program here, and he asked me if I wanted to read a couple of radio dramas, and I was right there anytime he asked. That just in fact, I still got recordings of them. We recorded the first 4 episodes of Flash Gordon off of the script that you can find online, because a lot of the stuff's in public domain. We even got the mayor of Flint at the time to come in and play a couple of roles on the recording. So
that's really cool.
Great. And it's just so much fun to do. And the cool thing about that is that it really got me turned on into short stories that, you'd get along later and start reading. Like a big volume of mine was the Science Fiction Hall of Fame, Volume 1. That's a collection of absolute classic short stories. Nightfall by Asimov's in it. The Roads Must Roll by Heinlein's in it. That just really classic short story stuff. And the short story structure of, again, telling a story in 20 minutes verbally, with sound effects, it's fascinated the heck out of me. So, of course, the big record to borrow, especially when you were a kid, impressionable, was the 1936 War of the Worlds.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
By Orson Welles. I'd take that home and scare the crap out of myself.
Just really cool, man.
Just fun. I still got a few of those records now. And I love old time radio. You can find everything's archived anymore, because it's all, everybody's let their copyrights lapse on the majority of that stuff. And Sirius has got a channel dedicated to old time radio, and just that kind of stuff to me is just great. And then you catch English versions of radio dramas from other countries. That's even more fun. Like I've got the Foundation trilogy that they did a radio drama of the Foundation trilogy over
Get out of
England.
here.
And I'm like,
Oh,
wow,
that's
that's really crazy stuff, but it's phenomenal and it's great. Yeah.
Wow, that really sounds interesting, Randy.
Yeah.
But
Thanks
that's
for-
what really got me into thinking about storytelling, and then again
Right,
sequential art, and tied back to what.
Well, and yeah, you
doing
see
here.
the soup that we're making has like these weird ingredients in it,
Mhm.
right? So Marvin, how about you, man? What we know about the comic ones, what is your one that we might think is kind of weird, or one that you really haven't talked about much?
So I would put that on my granddad, because he was a poet and a storyteller. He told us all his
Oh.
fascinating, maybe not too true stories.
Nice.
So yeah. I put a lot of blame on my active imagination on the things that he told us when we were younger. He was the one that put multiple books in front of me when I was younger. Dracula, Frankenstein, Malcolm X's book made me read the dictionary summer one time.
Mhm.
Nice. Oh, good for him, man.
The Spectre is haunting Texas. That's a weird one. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing those answers, guys. I really enjoy those a lot.
You have to answer it yourself now.
Oh, I guess some of you guys know a little bit. I'm a musician too, and I do like to tell the story of, I can remember I was probably 13 years old, maybe 14. And I went upstairs in my brother's room, and, next to his bong and case of Molson that was under the table, he had like the latest album. So when I say latest, they were a couple of years old. And I flipped through Black Sabbath, #1. And I remember going, what's that? And he was away at work. So I played a little bit of this album. And for those of you that, like, it's easy to say now, it's just another stupid metal band with like church bells. At the time, there was nothing like that, right?
Mhm.
It was more like watching a scary movie that you weren't supposed to be watching. I played the whole album. I ran right downstairs and started trying to mimic it on the bass. I put one side on, just mimic it. And I did that for months. And it was, that's how I got obsessed with bass. But I realize now it's also how I wanted to make something, and I wanted to make a song. Like, I try to make things. So that was like the first time the switch. I want to do what that guy's doing. I'm going to just keep trying until I can do what he's doing. And, I did it for, 30 years, 40 years, whatever it is. But yeah, and I still love music just as much as I did. And I try and incorporate it when I can, but mostly it's a writing thing these days. But thanks for letting me answer my own question. We had this question the other night, and I hope it doesn't sound fake. I'm fascinated by your guys' answers and the path that led you toward doing what you're doing. It's both similar and different at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go.
Oh yeah, great Black Sabbath reference. Way to go, Martha. We are a match made in heaven.
There you go.
I'll tell you, I'll expand on that a little bit. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, right? I play the album. I'm coming downstairs. I'd just been practicing my Black Sabbath. The neighbor girl's there. I'm getting ready to move. My parents are moving to Mount Pocono. And she says, Tim, I heard you were moving away. Yeah, I'm moving away. I'm blah, blah, blah. She says, hey, I got something for you. She might have been a year older than me, 2 years. Grabbed me and kissed me right on the lips. First time I'd ever kissed a girl was the same day I heard Black Sabbath. So they're linked a little bit. Maybe, who knows? But and anyway, I never saw her again after that day because we moved away. But yeah, the first time I heard Black Sabbath was the first day I kissed a girl.
All right. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Anybody else got a question? No? All right. I got a question.
You got
I
a
always
question.
have a damn question.
Spin
Lay it
the
on,
wheel.
JD.
We got a list over there on the side over there.
I do. I have a list of them. Yes. I got like
Don't
5 or
cheat.
6 of them. I'm
I'm gonna grab my water.
All right. Go ahead.
White pine. That's my favorite tree.
Oh, okay.
Never mind. Just joking.
Here's one that goes with the original topic, right? So it's like, because I've heard some horror stories, I've heard some good stories. So and I know mostly Sam and Marvin, this is mostly for you guys, because you guys I think do most of it. And then we'll ask Tim when he gets back, because he was retailer and Brandy was retailer. So yeah, I guess we'll ask him. Do you find retailers who do consignment to be trustworthy?
I don't do
Right.
consignment.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I only
Marvin?
do consignment with retailers I find trustworthy.
Right.
I guess that I would go within that lines too. But again, what I've heard from retailers is that people don't follow up at all. They drop the books off and then they disappear into the ether. I've heard many stores say that they took books on consignment, they sold the books, and the person never came back to check and see if the book sold. So it's a loss on their part then. But like Sam said, it's probably not a good idea to do it if you're not going to follow up. That's probably not a good idea. If the book is just going to sit there and the retailer isn't trying to push it, then again, it's a lose-lose on both sides.
And Marvin brings up a really good point too about people not following up, because I stay in contact with the retailers that we ship stuff. So after we ship, because we don't ship every month, we ship in bundles to restock what we have out, because we only have so many titles out. But when we ship something, about a week later, I'll follow up, say, hey, is everything moving okay? Did your shipment get there okay? We always make sure that nothing's damaged, all that kind of stuff, and see how the books are moving. If hey, we sold completely out of this, go ahead and put us down for this on the next shipment. No problem. I'll go ahead and set those aside. But the thing is to customer service on that is really, really important. And staying on top of that. That's one of the reasons I like working with Adam with Comics Mainstream, because he's always interacting with the customers where the spinner racks are at, and that's a huge selling point that helps move books.
Okay, cool. See if we can get Tim back. He's not back. I'm gonna ask the next question. Oh, wait a second. Tim is back. All right, Tim. So everybody else answered this question. Since you're a retailer, I figure you might have some insight. Do you find retailers who do consignment to be trustworthy?
Well, on the whole, yes. But since you asked me that question, it kind of puts the retailer in an unfair spot, I think. And here's what I mean by that. Again, this is one man's opinion. Not everybody's going to agree with this. But the retailer's kind of doing us a solid even to carry the books. There is no retailer that's saying things like, man, I can't wait for the next stack of indie books to get here. This is really going to keep the lights on. What they say is things like, hey, I want to support the indies because I'm a good guy and I want to be supportive. But the truth is, if they're breaking even, as I'm fond of saying, they would make more money with a stack of Funko Pops sitting there.
Right.
Yeah. And so I guess what I would say is if you've got a retailer that's going to work with you on consignment or whatever he's doing, you really have already succeeded, because he's doing, or she is doing you a solid. And I would look at it like a marketing thing. A couple of mine that I have in stores, I don't even really get anything back from. It's just, here they are, here's some books, try and get my name out there. But I don't do 100 or anything either. Sometimes I'll do, thanks, Tom, I'll do 5 or 10, books per place. It sounds like Sam has it figured out pretty good. I only have a small handful of stores that I'm available in, except for, you guys know I have a small thing going with Antarctic, and that's how I'm actually, in the stores. But I do have a couple of consignment deals, and in those cases, you're better off to try and work something out with a guy on a trade. I would even say, like, sometimes trade for inventory, because I'm a collector. How many of us in this room are comic collectors? Raise your hand.
A little bit, not as much as I used to be.
I have a small collection of books.
Yeah, Randy. One of these days we're going to talk. I think that.
That's just, that's why I had the curtain up here.
So I'm going to throw the curveball then. So would you guys be willing to? And now remember, I'm talking about small. I'm not talking about 100 books in a stack. I'm talking maybe 10 or 20 inventory. Would you be able to trade with the fella for, a couple of stacks of Bronze Age books?
Yeah.
I see. I'd do that deal too.
Yeah.
That also probably shows why I'm not a millionaire like JD.
While you were gone, I mentioned that from talking to retailers, a lot of them say that people don't follow up after they drop the books off. So they just go, even if they're sold, like the person never knows what happened, because they're like, oh, here's your books, and then I never hear from them.
I always say maybe the answer isn't change it up. He told me ask like a retailer, right? I'm going to tell you an idea that David didn't like and I liked, and my sense is maybe Marvin might like this. Get with the retailer. Each of you split 50% of the cost of a billboard, even a digital one, a good one on a highway, $2,800 worth, $3,500 worth, that flashes your, hey, on sale every Wednesday, XYZ Comics, whatever the store is, and use some of the art from one of your books. Something look that, even if you saw it for a second or two, it would still look cool. Then when they get to the store, they're going to say something like, hey, well, with a little luck, they'll recognize the one on the billboard. That's probably asking for too much. Maybe have a little stand right there by the cash register, Again, you're trying to drum up visibility more so than sales, right? Because it's easy to say, well, I didn't get many sales back from it, so I lost $1,400. That was your half, let's say. Well, have you ever spent $1,400 on a crowdfunding campaign? I have. I've spent twice that. Maybe the money is better spent for the billboard. I don't know that's the case because I haven't tried it. Yeah. I guess, what do you guys think?
I mean, again, that's another dartboard. You're just throwing it out there and see what sticks. I mean,
yeah,
I've seen 2 instances where creators bought trailer time in a movie theater and got zero, nothing.
But now, when you say got zero, what were they trying to achieve? Sales on a website type thing?
Kickstarter sales, and then directing people to comic shops, and I would say that it probably turned into nothing.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to advertise anywhere that would make the person looking at it angry anyway. If somebody's sitting there waiting for their movie to start, and they see a slide come by with that place, they're like, I ain't going there.
So this was like the pre-trailer. So they have that trivia stuff while you're waiting for the movie.
I got to be honest, I like that idea.
Still, they're already on edge from the trivia stuff. What are they asking these stupid questions for?
I like that idea too, but it sounds like it didn't work too well. But I guess it's all what you're trying to drive them to, right?
Right. So I'm just curious how like. I mean, they do have those. They have those digital billboards now where you can actually.
Yeah, and look, I got to be honest with you. The other guys, they hated the idea. There was nobody that was for. I was the only one.
Well, I would be curious how, like, you see, like, billboards for like lawyer offices continuously everywhere. Like, does that generate business to the lawyer's office having a billboard everywhere? We were out today and I saw like the same billboard like 6 times for like a different billboard, but for the same law office.
Lawyers can't afford it though, too.
Well, yeah. I remember we talk about sales a lot, right? Like, I used to be a sales and marketing guy, and the question is, look, we all want sales. That part's a given. That part's across the board. It's what we all want. But the way that you win in the marketing game is to just have the customer say, "What's that?" If they say, "What's that?" You got them, because all you have is a chance to get your pitch out. Most people won't even have the chance because they don't have a billboard, a placement in a theater, some of the things Randy was talking about. So the fact is, we got to have something, and it's got to be something new. I'm not 100% sure what the answer is, but I buy it about the what's that. Right. We got to dangle something out there.
Yeah, you need that.
A billboard probably wouldn't work, and I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth for a minute. The billboard probably wouldn't work because if you're driving it to a website, there isn't a way to effectively click to the website. And people say, well, you could put up a QR code. Yeah, but then you got a giant QR code instead of the art. It looks and that doesn't work either.
And it's called placement too. So if you're driving, I mean,
right. So what are you trying to do? Okay, so nobody will remember that. Okay, but the other thing, you go for some shocking or memorable fact, like, let's see, nobody's in Pennsylvania, right? Do you guys know I hate Steven Singer?
No,
it's just the big 4 words on a billboard.
I'm in PA. I'm not.
Yeah, I Hate Steven Singer is the website. IHateStevenSinger.com. I never buy jewelry, but even I can remember that the other jewelers are mad at Steven Singer because his prices are so low. I hate Steven Singer, which I haven't ever bought a piece of jewelry there, and I haven't. I promise I'm never gonna. If the world ends and falls, I'm never gonna go there and buy a piece of jewelry. But I know that's his website.
Wait, but here's something. Have you ever been to south of the border?
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're getting at here. They're prevalent billboards.
Right.
Right.
Have you guys? I don't know if Randy. I don't know. Mark, have you ever driven down? What is it? I-95 down to 95. Florida.
Yeah.
And it's like
every third one. It's like every third one. Yeah.
Every third one is come south. Come to south of the border. South of the border.
Well, and hold on. I guess I better turn it down just a hair because
I like wall drugs there in the middle of the prairie.
It's like Disneyland if it was on crack. It's all like faux Mexican display stuff. I mean, it is bonkers, man.
It's like a super cheesy Tijuana.
Where exactly is that at? Because I would like to upset the wife sometime.
It's a chain, right? There's a couple of them.
Is it south of Florida, or is it a whole chain?
No, I think it's north of Florida, but I believe it's like in Georgia, maybe.
Okay. Isn't there a couple of them? I thought it was a chain.
I don't know. I always thought it was just the one spot because I only ever stopped at the one place. But they have like scorpions and like paperweights. You know,
you could buy like a pinata or
yeah.
So
I'd never get my wife out of that store. Then
here's a question for you, Tim.
Okay.
And anybody who wants to answer it is that so. How do they do it in Las Vegas and dragging people to specific casinos? Because you've got multiple options.
Yeah, you know, first of all, that's a really good point because they do discovery in Vegas. There's people that work the street and they'll walk down the street and they hand out a card to you, which I was going to ask this question next because it does go together. It might seem like I'm trying to sell you a billboard. It's not that, because I will tell you, everybody disagreed with me when I said it before. I'm just trying to think of something different than what Randy might be doing, or, you know, like the truth is I don't have it figured out. I know there is another level, but I haven't figured out what it is for me. In my sense, it'll be take the form of doing something a little different than what other people are doing. If you go to a convention, that's where it starts to really click, because that's what discovery is. You can give out cards, or in my case, it's a little sticker. And I say, hey, do you like robots? Everyone says, yes, I like robots. And it's like a little cute sticker that I, pay 10 cents for. Pretty soon the people are talking, hey, do you like, visual images? All my stories have robots in them. Pretty soon we're all looking at comics and talking about robots. You'll get a sale that way about 30% of the time. If you're really smooth the people, maybe about 40%.
That's a pretty good conversion rate.
Yeah, and not bad, right? And this isn't me a genius. I came up with it. It's a proven sales thing. It's deposit, withdrawal. Hey, here's your cool sticker. If you like this, you might like that. You don't even really ask for the sale. They kind of come along for the ride, right?
Just south of North Carolina border. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne. Now we know. So I guess the question that I'm asking this group, here's all the smart people, right? My question is, we know how to do it at conventions. It's how do you discover the works of Sam? How do you discover the works of Randy? As if it was like hearing the song of the band on the radio. How do you discover it? And I'm not being ironic. How do we do it? Maybe a billboard is a way. JD, how do we discover your work? What's the next big step? Don't say billboard. That's taken.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, look, what's on it, to be honest, it's a project that I'm kind of working on at the moment.
I was hoping you'd say this.
And I still intend on doing it. It's just going to be later in the year or early next year. Is I want to do this paper thing where, where we get a group of creators together. It was something like what Randy was doing when he with his paper out in Flint.
Yeah, I like that idea too, by the way.
But it's just going to be just indie centric. That's all it's going to be about. And it's going to be something with a low entry buy point. You're going to say a buy-in, so that we can distribute to retailers for free something that they can give out to the fans.
Like a comic shop news.
Right. Something like a comic shop news, but something that, like I said, it's going to be something that they could just hand out to the fans, and it'll go directly into actual readers' hands. People, hopefully, who are just interested in indie comics. I really don't care about the guys who are buying Marvel and DC, because converting those people is a little bit tough. If it happens, great. But, the people who want indie comics, they want something a little different, and them when you see them, right? Because they're all here, right?
And usually your indie comic collector is more of a reader.
Right.
So they're willing to read different things and get into different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear Sam's take on this one too. We talk about it because you guys got a bunch of things going on, right? What is the next big marketing step, I would say, for you guys?
You do get retail.
Well, specifically, we have been working on a deal with a particular channel that they're across YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. Got about 300,000 or so reach is what they're looking at. We have promotions that we're going to be working hand in hand with them, and then also I'm going to be helping them with creating a comic that they want to create out from their IP. So kind of working hand in glove on that. There's beyond that, a lot of our promotions tend specifically in those social media networks, and I've been really hesitant to get into paid promotion for budgetary and effect reasons.
Right.
I don't know anyone who's ever had successful ad campaigns through like Facebook, Instagram, or anything. I don't know anyone who can say that.
Any 2 cents about Google ads while you just mentioned it? Do you like that?
That's what I'm looking at hardest right now,
Yeah,
but particularly with Google ads and YouTube. The YouTube, here's what I see with YouTube particularly. I am not a paid YouTube user. I'm not giving them $70 or whatever it is a month to keep ads off. I'm not doing that.
Right.
So because the ads aren't going to kill me. They didn't kill me as a kid. They don't kill me now. But
there's 2 now instead of 1 though. Pretty soon it'll be 3, I imagine.
Yeah, but whenever you open up YouTube, I mean, you'll see that there are different little advert videos that are in your page populating based on what your what your algorithmically determined interests are. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when I open YouTube, I see stuff for Kickstarter ads that are coming up. I see stuff for comic book suppliers. I see Comics Wellspring every single freaking day. And
gotcha.
The thing about that is that I'm seeing them. So it's working to the interests that my usage of the platforms are dictating. It works.
Well, and I think you're saying here that this is the reasons why you would advertise there. Okay, got it.
As opposed to Facebook, where I see ads for dating apps, erectile dysfunction pills.
Right, I hear you. Yeah.
Cosmetic surgery, motorcycle insurance. I don't own a motorcycle. I don't need erectile dysfunction pills. I damn sure don't want a dating app on Facebook. Are you kidding me? It's just that like nothing at all that applies towards me. But
you have to wonder if somebody with your same name has a very lonely life.
I think they just look at age, gender, and
I used to complain about. I'll just tell you guys quick. I'm kind of anti-AI. I understand there's different opinions. I will not preach to you about it, but I used to complain that I didn't like AI on Facebook. And what happens to you then is that the platform sees the word AI and starts keying you into. It's like entering the first level of hell. So now it's like I just shut up and
Heaven forbid I stand in my living room and talk about a pimple that I'm having a hard time popping, and all of a sudden all of my recommendations are from Dr. Pimple Popper. No lie. But for me, whenever I see an ad on YouTube, it's like watching an ad at the theater. I'm so angry. I'm sitting there waiting for the panel to come up to say, click here, that I'm going, screw these guys. And and that especially in Comics Wellsprings, 45 minutes from my house. No, stop it.
Here's the thing I'd point out though.
It drives me to the point of.
So if you had, aside from being inundated with the same ones over and over again, if you intermittently start seeing stuff for like the Oswald Chronicles, now available at a retailer near you, or what is it, Water Wars, Tim? That's yours, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Water Wars. Sorry, I just drawing a blank for a second.
I'd stop and watch it once.
Right, and here's the thing: once, even if your conversion rate is like 3%, right, and you have, if we generously say that there are 75,000 people who are going to see that in North America, and you convert, say 3%. That's a terrible conversion rate.
Yeah, I was going to say that should be very doable. You're doing this very accurately.
So if you have like just terribly low conversion rate, that gives you that first purchase chance to earn a new customer.
And how are you getting that first number though? When you talk about your reach, can I ask you this question? Is this boring to you guys? When you're talking about your reach number, are you using the Facebook reach number, or which one are you using there?
Oh, from the one influencers I was talking about?
Yeah, like if they say, because everybody says something like that. Well, let's say it's 30,000 times 8% roughly. My question is, which is number, the first number, what's it coming from?
I pulled their Social Blade stats. Is what I based it on. I pulled their Social Blade stats, and basically went from there, and then we had a meeting and we talked with them, and their numbers actually came in right in line with Social Blade was ascribing to them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's I've got 2 points of data on that. I'd like to have a third. I just don't have a reliable one yet to cross check.
I'm real interested in that too. I think the truth is, like we're talking about new things, the next move for me is likely to be more something like that than more publishing deals. Because again, I think we're all after what is going to be better for us, which it's to hype up our own platforms, which can be digitally beefed up somehow. Like I say, what the answer is, I don't know. I talk pretty big, but that is what the answer is. We just have to figure out how to do it.
And I think too that we can't really just limit ourselves, guys. We've got to put ourselves in multiple locations. Like I have held off on putting stuff on Amazon for the longest of times for a lot of reasons. I don't want to bore
Nobody
you guys
likes
with that
it.
right now.
Nobody who does it likes it.
But by the same token, I use Drive-Through RPG and Drive-Through Comics tremendously, and we've moved literally thousands of digital comics now over the last Drive-Through Comics. And so I use them for Kickstarter fulfillment. We do, we have gradual trickle of sales every week, and it's to be perfectly blunt about it, I mean, most months my phone bill or my gas bill, or sometimes both, are paid from my drive-through revenues.
I'm going to check that out. I didn't know drive-through.
Yeah, drive-through. They are the actual, as far as I'm aware, they're the original online role-playing digital site for purchases there, and one of the first comic ones. There were some earlier comic ones. If memory serves, I believe. Oh crud! I just completely dropped the ball on what the site name is.
I used to love Wowio. I used to love Wowio when it was out, Wowio.com, until Platinum Studios came in and completely screwed everybody on their rights. You had to sign.
Well, hold on. Let's
contract rights over to them.
I still wanted to hear Marvin's too. What everybody's new thing is.
Drive-through comics. Gary Reed from Caliber used to swear by them.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I think his catalog's still up there. Last time I knew. Sorry, Marvin. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, you're fine. You're fine. So as people can attest, and you probably learned over the years, I'm insane.
A little bit, yeah.
We'll go out and do things that are insane.
Right.
So when like I was telling you before about the Pillsbury Con, we're going to probably go after the younger generation.
Yeah. You guys, your launch party things are pretty cool, man.
Yeah. We're going to do another one of those, I think, in October for Grant's release. I don't know. I might skip it for mine, but I might do one in August. So we'll see how that goes. But
okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. You say it toward younger people. What does that mean? We're
going after the comic clubs at schools.
Mm-hmm.
We're going after the comic clubs at the schools. We're going after the comic clubs in the libraries. We're going after. We are getting connected with someone who is the STEM lead for the Pittsburgh Public Schools.
Oh, the nerds.
Yeah. So we're going after So not only are we looking at new readers, we're looking at new creators. We're trying to get into that mode where we're going to go in there and teach them how to do comics.
That's a good one, Marvin.
We're going to take our script from script to store panel that we do at shows and make that into a presentation that we can do at school.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, my thing came unplugged. It'll take me just a second.
I used to do that quite a bit before the bug hit.
Yeah.
I'd go to the after school classes and teach either cartooning or we'd put a little mini comic together over a period of six to 8 weeks, depending upon how large their block was.
Right. Well, one of the guys on our team was already doing this through the Carnegie Library, but he's only doing it from the art side. So now we're like story building, world building, character creation. Just go in and see what happens, because I've tracked down a few high schools that do comics clubs, and there's multiple colleges in Pittsburgh that we could work this into. So
yeah, there is.
And the other one was every year there's an art crawl out here in Pittsburgh. So we just set up on the sidewalk and sell comics to people walking past on this art crawl.
Cool.
And we just, like I said, is that we go to where do we think the people are that want to get comics but don't know how to get them.
Mm-hmm.
People are unaware that a comic shop is a thing. People are unaware that there's anything outside of Marvel and DC.
Yep.
So I mean, it's to our own power and usefulness that we have to educate these people that these other things exist. And if we're not the one that's going to do it, then no one else is going to. So I mean, no one can be an advocate for us but us.
Very true.
Mm-hmm. True.
Did you hear all that, Tim?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
I'm going to, if I may, I'm going to segue a little bit from Mike because he had mentioned he picked up all his RPG stuff on drive-through. If you check us out on drive-through for the comics side, we still have our convention bundle that is up, so you can get all 9 of our currently available digital issues for only $9 as part of our convention bundle, and we'll have that up probably until Thursday.
There was one more.
That's a good idea.
A couple years ago with a retailer was to have like an ice cream truck with comics. So you go in the neighborhood, ring the bell, comics, we got comics. I mean, it didn't pass through, but maybe it's something we can revisit with a different retailer in a year or so. Just
you'd have to be really careful how you did that. It'd have to be in some pretty well-populated neighborhoods for one, but for two also, you'd have to know the local police department too, probably.
Yeah, right.
Let's swing to the idea of the convention. We were talking about marketing.
Right.
The marketing of the conventions. Do you guys know Rick DeRay?
No, I don't know him.
He's trying to put this. Well, he did this year the Heroic Awards, which is like an award ceremony.
Yeah, he was on last weekend.
Yeah. You like Rick?
He?
He seems like a pretty cool dude.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's very passionate about putting together this award show, and they did C2E2 and this and that. And it seemed to be correctly run and curated and this and that. The next thing they're trying to do is to have an indie con. Imagine Indie, it's called. I'm in. IMIN. And it is an all indie publisher network. In a convention form, meaning it would be like 3 or 4 cities, and you'd go there, and instead of a hobbit, a wrestler, and the guy who drove William Shatner's golf cart, it would be JD and Sam and Randy and Marvin, right?
I mean, there's already a few of those.
Well, here's my
not
question.
enough of them. Definitely not enough.
Not enough of them. True.
Is this enough to where? How do I put this? Are there enough customers that buy indie products to put that much of a focus on it? Be honest. Do you think
Wait,
that'll work?
say that again? Is there enough what?
Will there be enough customers?
It depends
Because
on
one
how
of the reasons why comic conventions are packed is because there's hobbits there and there's all this other stuff, right? So they're saying do it without that stuff.
Now there is. You would probably have to start incredibly small with something like that. Maybe setting up in a farmer's market.
You could have lesser known
or whatever.
Like JD Rosario could be there. You could start small.
Yeah, well, I was going to say you're seeing a nice resurgence of those little one-day cons coming up already.
The Sony
one missing. I don't know who Sony is.
So
sorry,
you want to take that, and I'll go.
Tom
I've got a good answer for this one.
All right.
Go ahead.
Me?
Go, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Go. So in Pittsburgh we've got both sides. So we've got the Steel City Con,
right,
which is
big one,
a pop culture convention where they invite 30 celebrities every year.
Who's your top celebrity? Give me an idea this year, Marvin.
So honestly, here it's the one guy from Scream, the one that died in the first Scream movie. What's his name? The one that got the TV dropped on him.
Is that the Bridesmaids guy? The Princess Bride guy?
No. Scream.
Oh, Scream.
Matthew Lillard?
Yeah. Matthew Lillard is huge here. I don't know.
Okay.
He stays late every time to sign autographs and things like that. Beyond that, beyond that, it's probably Shatner and then Chevy Chase for some reason.
Wow.
So yeah. So we've got that. So this year they had some problems with the convention owner. They wanted to sell the convention. So the borough saved the convention, but lost the hotel because there was a hotel there too. So they don't have enough room in this convention center to hold all the people. They got caught up in fire code last time, and the fire marshal came and told them if they did it again, they were going to get fined. So they had to set up a tent outside to house all these celebrities because they don't have enough room in the convention center. So on the other side, you've got Three Rivers Con, which is run by the people who own the New Dimension Comics.
Yeah, I know those guys.
So on one side, you've got a show that's celebrities, hardly no creators, and other vendors. They had a person doing massages there one year. You have people selling fudge. You have people selling ice cream.
Yeah.
You've got the drink guys with the root beer.
The special pet food, the Pokemon
right.
stickers.
Yeah. So you've got two things that are doing like this, and we don't do the other show anymore because it's not creator centric. We can't do anything there because of one, the door cost to get in there, and then everyone's there to get celebrity autographs and pictures, and they're broke by the time they get to us.
Yep.
So the Three Rivers one is creator focused. They're actually going to they're relaunching Tribe at the show in June 1st and 2nd. They're relaunching Tribe this year. Larry Stroman will be there. So that's a creator focused show. Which show do you think gets the most people at? So when you're saying that we want to have a Indy Con show, that shows the Three River shows built up over 8 years. Now they're in competition somewhat with the people coming to the show, but it took time to build to that. So it could work, but you have to have the time, the effort, and the patience to build something, because you can snag people from those other shows because I don't want to pay $800 or $100 to get an autograph from the person who was in the background of some show back in 1984.
So how about other retailers?
Yeah,
is it cool to have other by retailers? I mean comic retailers.
Oh yeah. It's doable because Three Rivers has done this, but it's time and grind and time and to the point of like you may feel like that, we're just going to give up because we're not getting the people through those doors, but eventually people will wear down and be like, oh, I don't want to go to that thing anymore. It's too expensive. This is cheaper. And someone will sign my book for free.
Really, it's an issue of quality over quantity too. You can have 1,000 people through the door. If they're not there to see you, you're not going to make that sale. You can have 10 people walk through on a little show that actually want to read comics and are there to absorb whatever comics they can find. Be the best show you've had all year.
Right. And
that's here in the Michigan area. We've got the Motor City Con that's expensive to go through. In fact, they just had it in fact, the last day was today. But once a month, there are guys out there who hold what I call old paper conventions. And these guys make tons of money selling the old style, old paperbacks, old comics, readable comics, magazines, just old paper stuff, stand-up displays, movie posters, all of that, just like the old conventions used to back in the 70s and 80s. Right. And you've got a couple of big, I think there's a big pulp con in Pittsburgh too, that concentrate on older pulp magazines. Yeah.
It's about 5 miles outside of Pittsburgh, and it's called Cranberry. Yeah, okay. we did that show before. Yeah.
Did you do all right at it?
Yeah. I mean, but it's the pull, and it's not just the idea that you show up and you just sell books. It's the pull.
My point is you got to get the readers, the quality folks coming through, other than the quantity, because it's at a show with 10,000 people and they're all there for anime.
It's on the pitch sometimes too, where if someone hears a key phrase like, "Oh, that piqued my interest because you said that. Now I'm interested. Now sell me books." So I mean, it's to that nature of those kind of things, and like I said, it has to build. You have to build. You have to build it. So it can happen. It's just going to take time to build it. And I don't want to see is someone get frustrated in that first year or two and say, we're not getting who we need here. I quit.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll make a quick comment to Michael, who's mentioning the Little Giant old school comic show. That's Jason Brodnick's show. Definitely one of the best comic conventions out there. Let me tell you specifically what I mean. It goes right to the heart of what we were just talking about. Part of his agenda is that he says things like, look, it doesn't have the root beer dealer. It doesn't have the Lego guy. It doesn't have the girl knitting a custom-made headwear that looks like Firefly. It's comic dealers and comic creators. So it's like the real blood of the industry. But what you get is the customers are really, first of all, it's a very profitable show. People spend money while they're there. And for a guy like me, I only did it one time, but I do better by myself than, at a place like that than a really big convention like, say, Baltimore. I'm not ratting on Baltimore, but keep in mind, if you go into Artist Alley, what is it, 330 you're in with now, something like that. It's this lane after lane after lane of all these creators, and it's hard to maintain any kind of,
right. But at the same time, it's up to you. I mean, it's a lot more work then, because you're having to talk to every person that walks past your table, whether and if you don't get a sale, get an email address, because that could turn into a sale later. But my idea has always been, why don't some of these smaller shows link up into a network and don't overrun each other? That's what Three Rivers does. They make sure that they don't overrun other shows. So we've got like 5 in a row we can do in June if we want to, because they decided not to overrun those other shows.
How many shows do you do in a year now, Marvin?
Like a couple of years ago, we did like 15.
I can't do that many.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I don't want to ever do that again, because it's the burnout factor is very strong. I'm not going to do all 5 in a row, but you see, Herrenberg is going to do 5 weekends in a row. He's going to go out there and do it. But like I said, is that Three Rivers will be at some of these other shows too. I mean, New Dimension will be at some of these other shows, not only promoting the store, but the show also. So that's one of the things they do. If they network together and feed off of each other and say, hey, why don't you go to this show next and that show next and that show next, not run over each other, you can push other people to those shows and get your audience up.
Yeah.
But what we find is how many, like, you've had multiple times in a year where you've had 3 shows and 4 or 5 shows in one weekend, and then you're splitting your audience.
Right.
Speaking of Herrenberg, I got to meet him in Cincinnati last year at the con down there, and then this last year was our first year at New York, and we got to meet all kinds of interesting people, didn't we, JD?
Oh, you in the Big Apple?
And how many shows do you do in a year?
I've done 5 so far this year, ranging from little community center ones to the Lexington Toy and Comic Festival, and probably going to do 8 or 9 more. Although I don't think we're going to do New York this year. I don't think we're going to be able to swing it, because we're adding in
Big Apple or New York Comic Con.
We did New York Comic Con last year. First time there, and we did it as a vendor. It was absolutely nuts. Yeah, it's what's wild is that I've had some really teeny tiny shows that we've done, like little library shows in towns with less than 3,000 people in them, that have actually outsold, like when I was in Louisville, which is the largest city in Kentucky by population, which is just wild. But then of course the local show that's of any size that's really good to me is Lexington Toy and Comic Festival. So if you were looking for a mid-size con, I mean, they'll have like 30 to 40,000 people show up across 4 days.
Wow.
And
the Whopper.
Yeah, it's a good size con.
Yeah. So it's definitely interesting. People come, they have a good time. This year was actually much better for me than the year prior was. More people were spending money. We also had more space, which we're going to need more of. But
well, and it's also probably, tell me if I'm wrong, Sam, but it's probably your best advertising too, right? New customers and stuff.
Yeah, and part of that is the returning customers are so much of it, because there's a group of guys who actually back every single crowdfunding campaign that we have, and they're out of Lexington. And every time we're at a con anywhere around Lexington, they show up to see if we have anything that we haven't brought to Kickstarter or to Crowdfunder or to Fund My Comic yet. And then I usually have a few little pieces that we haven't put out to anything yet, or some art or original pages, stuff like that. And just we always get pictures and stuff. They're really cool guys. So hey, John, how you doing? The thing too is that when people are going by and they see 6 or 7 guys who are yelling at the top of their lungs, Sam, how's it going? And they come running over, And they're like, "What's new? What's new? What you got? I need this holofoil one because I didn't get it at the Kickstarter." That does wonders for your foot traffic. But the other thing too is that
version of word of mouth.
Yeah. I mean, it's immediate and impulsive. But of course, the other thing too is every con I see, their booth prices have gone sky high.
Yeah. That's. Yep. We could do a whole show about that. I have my own opinions. We have become the product.
Yeah.
The creators have become the product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I could jump in, I mean, in New York, we have SPX, right? Small Press Expo. Small Press, because we have New York Comic Con, Small Press Expo, and Big Apple. Those are pretty much the three. Mm-hmm. SPX, I mean, the last time I went, the one good thing about it is a ticket price to get in is $5, right?
Nice.
So that's a great thing. It's $5. A table is about, last I checked, was about $4.25. Okay. And I believe it's only two. It was either two. I believe it's only 2 days. Mm-hmm. But when I went in there, it was shoulder to shoulder people. The place was packed. Mm-hmm. The thing is, though, is like good and bad at the same time. I would imagine if I was behind the table, it's good because you always have people in front of you. Mm-hmm. But it was bad because I didn't have the time to squeeze in front of a table to look at it long enough to buy something. So I ended up buying nothing.
How? Yeah.
You understand? Because it was just that tight. Like, it was that tight. And the thing is, this thing is run on 4 floors of this building. And the floors aren't small. It's like, you can probably fit like 400 or 500 people per floor. And the place was packed with humans. I mean, it was just crazy, So I mean, it's a little nuts, but I do feel like an independent comic book show can take off and can sustain itself, but it depends on the venue as well. I mean, I think and the other thing is trying to get into SPX is almost impossible. Yeah. We put in something every year and they're like, "Nah, sorry, you didn't make it, for whatever reason, because we don't know you." And that's usually what it is.
Well, they're curating people, aren't they?
They what?
They're checking boxes on people, aren't they?
Who knows?
Everybody's got their reasons.
Yeah, everybody's got their reasons. Typically is this: if you're not in, and when I say in, you don't know someone in the organization, you're probably not gonna be. Yeah. That's all that is.
Well, I mean, we got really lucky to get into New York Comic Con. I mean, it's just blind dumb luck because I don't know anyone there. But of course, you saw where they put us. Though. You saw where they put us too, though. We were about as far removed from comics as you could get. But I mean, still, we sold, I don't know, 1,000, 1,200 books, something like that. So
cool.
So I like the curveball that comment that was right there. So I just wonder what ice cream shop would stay in business if they only sold chocolate and vanilla ice cream.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the problem
not sustainable.
Right. But try because the thing is though is like they're not going to sell, instead of selling Marvel and DC, they're going to sell a pop, right? Yeah. Or a role-playing game book or something along those lines, something with a higher margin.
Probably, JD, how many shows do you do a year?
As few as possible.
More than 5? More than 6?
No, less. Okay. 1, maybe 2. The thing is, it's funny. I was just having this conversation with Daphne today, and we were talking about our good friend JD, who
did you just mention JD Rosario, who even when he's not on the episode, ladies,
even when he's not on the episode, we still bomb on him. No, he likes going to shows, and that's great. He talks about going to New York Comic Con. He did a couple of shows last year, right? And I always get on his case. He's always talking about going to shows, and I'm like, dude, you did 2 shows last year. It's nothing. It's nothing. It says Daphne and I. There was a period for about 5 or 6 years where we did at least 1 show a month, and there was at least 4 of those years where we did at least 2 shows a month, and in some months we did 3. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that is tiresome. It'll drain you. And mind you, we actually enjoy each other's company. You know, it's like we get in the car and we're talking, you know, all the way there and all the way back, right? But it's like but it's one of those things, like, you know, it gets tiring no matter where you go and how you do it.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're doing that many. And I was like, you got to do that many shows. And I'm like, look, listen, and I'm vastly grateful for Kickstarter and every other crowdfunding platform that's out there, because like I said, I'd rather, you know, put out a campaign and fulfill these campaigns while I'm in my PJs and, you know, just go about my day. Because like I said, you know, I don't mind doing 1 or 2 a year, 3 or 4 a year. But, you know, back then, before there was Kickstarter, that was the only way we could get books out.
Right.
You know, and I mean, and that's the thing. And that's how we did it. You know, and we would do that many shows. And it was crazy, you know?
Yeah,
so,
I saw a few people abandoning cons for a while, and they're doing store signings.
Right. And the thing is, back then it was cheaper.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's where I was headed with my point, because now, again, I don't mean gatekeeping in any way, and I love it when people make things. I'm creative myself, so it's cool when people are creative. But when we buy a table at the comic convention, it used to be, hey, I'm going to be next to Randy and JD and Sam. Like, you know, we're all creators. We're all making a book. Okay. Yeah. Or even a game is actually or a song. It's all okay. But it's when you start to get into the somewhat sketchy area of fan art, and, you know, this latest thing is AI art. Again, I'm not going to go into that. But these are the same. I paid the same amount as they did. I don't feel that that's 100% fair.
Right.
So, speaking to Magnus TV here on Anime Cons. So I can tell you that the guys who are running the cons, especially like the smaller conventions, the medium-sized conventions, the guys who aren't going to be pulling, you know, Japanese mangaka, the guys who aren't going to be able to fly people in from South Korea, the guys who are not hosting VTuber troops, they honestly don't care where your manga comes from, where your work comes from. If you're making manga, American, European style comics, they don't. What they care about is making sure they have that vendor space done. Now, if they have an artist alley, you're going to find that whole delineation between, we only want like Japanese manga, that's not going to be a thing. Because they're not going to be able to have, you know, just an artist alley full of Japanese manga. It's just not financially feasible. I go to anime cons as a vendor, as a publisher, and we don't have any American-made manga. We have American manga artists who do some work for us. Dan Donnelly has done some work for us, like some really remarkable work for us. Some of our most popular merchandise, in fact, was done by Dan Donnelly. Paul Walcott, who does the variant covers for 47 Furious Tales, fantastic American manga artist. So I think that the experience on that, when it comes down to it, find the conventions that, you know, are, you know, not the anime cons in San Francisco, not the ones in Seattle, probably not even Boston. I would probably not even try Atlanta, but I mean, look for Cincinnati. Look for Columbus. Look, Dayton. Actually, the Dayton Comic Con is a hell of a place to be. Their anime expo in Dayton, absolutely fantastic. Houston comes to mind. You know, fantastic anime show down there, and manga show. The showrunners need that revenue that you bring from your table costs in order to balance their books. You know, they need that. And whether it's a 6-foot artist alley table, or if you're like me and you're paying $1,200 for a corner vendor slot or whatever it is,
that's probably a better deal too. We should talk about that one too,
especially if you've got like some of your artists coming with you. So yeah,
you got to get noticed in a space that's and again, this is just an observation. I'm still figuring this out. I only do maybe 6 a year, maybe 7. But when you're in a long row, you know, your standard table, let's say it's $300, and you're in a long row of, let's say, 15 on one side and 15 on the other, till you get to the next quadrant with 15 on each side. It's really hard to stick out in that spot. That's why I think you either buy the double or buy this year I might look at getting half of an exhibitor booth with the big square one that goes to the ceiling. I can't afford it on my own, but I've been practicing with splitting some things with other creators.
I mean, I'm still dressing my space up, but
how big of a space did you say it was? 12 feet?
I had a 10 by 10 corner booth at
that's good. That's really good. Yeah.
The I think I have an image of that. JD, I'll see if I can send you a clip for that real quick.
Yeah, the 10 by 10, that I think that is what I'm talking about. It's the exhibitor, it's a publisher booth, yeah.
The corner booth, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, if you got a picture of it, I'd love to see it.
That's what I'm trying to pull now.
Okay. Yeah, cool, man. Thanks for sharing all this.
And you really have to be careful with that and grow into it.
Yeah, you don't want to financially hurt yourself by any
go under real quick, making a lot of convention people happy.
Yeah,
yeah.
I come from a day where we used to do Fred Greenberg's convention up in the Javits Convention Center, where they currently hold New York Comic Con, right?
Yeah,
and tables were $100. Whereas that same table today is
heck yeah.
$1,200. At $100, $150, you can make money easy, right? $1,200, you can make money not as easy.
Yeah,
right?
that's a long haul. Yeah, you got to move a lot of product.
Right.
Well, and like I was saying, I was just in Philly, and I'm trying to only do guests anymore, which we'll see how that works. But it was $140 to park, and it was $100 and some for tank of gas, and it was just a hair over $100 for the tolls.
Right.
So there's that is $340 before we even had any costs yet.
Yeah, I mean, even a show like Big Apple Con here, I believe it's $350. The guy wants for a table now, and it's just like I don't want.
It adds up. It adds up. We got to find some alternate way to. And one of the things that I don't know if you will have the time to ask that, but so lately I've been experimenting with. I team up with other creators for various cities. I've had some success with David Dow. We're both with Antarctic, and we split the hotel rooms, we split the gas, and it's ways to. I can sometimes get to cities that otherwise I couldn't have done. Like next, we're going to try Boston.
Right. I mean, I would think that it might be time to try to find a sponsor too.
Well, yeah, but I don't have anything like that. I get a little bit of juice from the podcast. I can sometimes trade conventions for like a little ad or that kind of thing, or a graphic. Oh, this is great.
Okay, there's a couple of quick ones that I just pulled off my phone real fast. That's day 3 or day 4, I think, because we had thinned out a lot of stuff.
Sure.
But between the different titles and the different art prints and the originals and buttons, and we were sold out of mugs from the previous con. So
I like that a lot. Yeah, that's an exhibitor size there.
Yep.
So in my case, I do you guys know Niall O'Rourke by any chance, the Irish writer?
No. I'm not familiar with him.
He's an indie creator. He's published. He would have one side, and I would have the other.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if JD is still listening, but he and I talked about this, and he often points out a true fact. He's like, hey, but you don't have the full impact if you had the thing by yourself. And I say, yeah, but it's a little bit easier to get noticed at the big exhibitor booth. And then I'm going to have a shot in a city that I wouldn't have had if I got half of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you've got space to do stuff. I mean, but again, the thing is that Randy said this real well. Don't hurt yourself with this. I mean, there's a lot of books to sell to recoup,
right,
the costs on that space. Yeah. Especially, our con prices. I mean, we're selling comics at $5 a pop, and we're selling art prints at 10 or 15, and then we've got usually con specials and whatnot.
Good prices.
So we're really depending on volume, and hell, my 9-year-old at Lexington, she sold like $70 worth of buttons by herself. It was crazy. At $2 a pop. She's like, buy a button, $2. So, but yeah, it's I personally I would like to in about 3 years I'd like to be grown into a 20 by 20 cube.
Oh, big one.
So yeah, but I mean the price point on that, you're usually at current prices you're somewhere around 5,000.
Yeah,
so I mean you've got to really, I mean you're looking at moving probably 1,800 books just to recoup cost of goods sold in your space. So
yeah, I mean I unfortunately it's become. I mean it's always been a business, right?
Right. Yeah.
Conventioneering has always been a business. but it's gone from a love. The people who originally started loved comics, right? And they would give you a reasonable price at a table. Whereas now it's just about money.
Right.
They're like,
That's
how much can we get for this spot? And we don't
and,
care if it
and
goes.
if you pass, they sell it in 2 seconds to somebody else.
They don't care if they give Samsung takes the spot. They don't care if Toyota takes the spot. They don't care who takes the spot.
Right.
As long as they can get as much as they can get for it.
All right.
And that's the part that grieves me, because I'm like, as indie guys, we know how tough it is, right? If you get a table for $200, $300 at one of these big shows, that's fine. You understand? But once you start getting 500, 600, 700, 800, 1,000, it starts to become egregious, right? And at that point, it's just like you either take the stand and say, you know what, I'm not doing the show.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hell, our space in New York was over $2,000.
Right, exactly. Jay's the same way. I think he paid either 12 or 1,500, something in that area. I mean, and maybe he paid more. I don't know. You'd have to ask him. But yeah, was it 2,200? I don't know. He paid a lot of money.
Genuinely have to hustle on that.
Right, you genuinely have to hustle. Yeah. And I mean, and I'm one who doesn't like to work quite that hard when I'm on one show. I'd rather walk around and buy stuff, but So yeah, that's always been my issue. You can ask if you could ever get Daphne on, she would tell you. She would she doesn't like to hang around. But gentlemen, we made it to hour 2. Thank you so much for being here. This was awesome. And please, let's start with Mr. Marvin. Where can we find you and your work, sir?
You can find me online at comicsburg.com and theedge.com. theedgecomic.com, and on the interwebs at The Edge.
Cool. Mr. Tim, where can they find you and your work, sir?
I'm Timothy Fling from Earth Dog Studios. The best way to find me is at earthdogstudios.com. Also on YouTube, they have what they call a handle now. I'm at Timothy Fling. If you'd like to check out some of our podcasts or our original music related to our book series. Thanks for having me on the show, JD. This is a good one.
Tim, anytime, you know that. Mr. Randy, where can they find you and your work, sir?
I'm Randy Zimmerman. You can find me at aerocomics.store. Everything over at the store is ready to be shipped immediately. So there's a lot of great, wide variety of comics there. Not all by myself, but there's some really, really great stuff there. You can find my other campaigns over at fundmycomic.com. That's been really successful for us. We just closed a Shadow Kingdom graphic novel where we adapted a public domain Robert E. Howard story, closed out over 10,000 on that campaign. Just ecstatic about it. I adapted it, and the great Russ Leach did the artwork for that. Where it's currently at the printer. I can't wait for it to get fulfilled and get copies into my hands. Really proud of that. Other than that, you can find me on the Indy Comics Network, the Randy Zim YouTube channel, the Comic Book Black Belt YouTube channel, 2 times a week, Friday mornings at 5 a.m. At Comics by Night, where we look through some great sequential art by the best guys. Well, sometimes we get a hinky one in there or two just to complain about it. And also Sunday Funnies on Sundays at 9 a.m., where we cover more of the more unusual bits of this business that really inspire us. The great sequential art. We did Alex Toth's Zorro collection this morning. The week before that, we went through Scott McCloud's Destroy. That was a great episode. And we're archived over at the Indie Comics Network. You can find us over there. So a lot of folks like to listen to us afterwards. Kind of the same thing that Cartoon Kayfabe was doing there for a while. We've been doing it for a couple of years, only we're pulling out the comics by the people that we really love and we really respect in order to talk positively about this art form and analyze it and this business, so we talk about inking techniques and composition and all of that as we go through and look through some really, really, really great sequential art. So check us out. Indie Comics Network.
Mr. Sam, where can I find you, sir?
Man, it's always hard to follow Randy, I tell you.
Sorry.
I know, it's all good, man. I love it. Okay, so you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, X, Kick, YouTube, all your socials is Sinopa Publishing, SINOPA. You can find us on Drive Through Comics, Drive Through RPG. If you're a fan of digital or feel like a print-on-demand title, we got you covered there. You can find our comics and role-playing books in many different shops around, and if your local shop doesn't carry us, have them contact us, and we'll make sure they do. You can also find us on Fund My Comic, Crowdfunder, and Kickstarter when we're launching campaigns to bring exclusive cover options to the crowdfunding platforms. And you'll also find us on various other YouTube channels, including right here with Mr. Calderon, on Niobe Comics with Larry Patrick Higgins and all of them. You'll occasionally find me on with Travis Gibb. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back or not. We'll see. And a few others. So, I mean, I show up like a bad penny everywhere, but I'll try and have a kind word.
Cool. Travis is cool. He'll let you. He'll bring.
I have a lot of respect for Travis.
Travis
You guys have a moment or what? I didn't know that one.
Oh no, he didn't like my book. It's not nothing serious as far as I'm concerned. He just didn't like my book.
These things unfortunately occur.
Yeah.
So I'm JD Calderon. You can find me here most Sunday nights. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all those different DeviantArt, all those different places under JD Calderon. The OswaldChronicles.com, TallTalesOnline.com, and just about all the time, and currently for the next 20 hours or so on Kickstarter with the Oswald Chronicles. There are links in the show notes to everybody here. So you can go on those links, click on those links, buy some of these books from these very worthy creators. These are all awesome creators. Please go check out their stuff. They're doing great things. All right. So please just remember, buy more indie comics, especially ours. Have a good night, guys. Thank you,
everybody. See you.